And welcome to Weather and Ag in Focus on this terrific Tuesday. It is St. Patty's Day. Hope everybody's having a good day. We've got some snow pushing through the area. We got a report from Justin, one of our listeners, said he hit partial whiteout conditions from Hankinson to Fairmont. And then once he got to the Minnesota border, there was nothing, absolutely nothing. That line of snow is moving from west to east, so even areas in western Minnesota will see that snow, but it is really starting to wind down as we're still seeing a little moderate snow up around the Grand Forks area, but the snow in and around the FM area has rapidly decreased. It's really just light snow now, and we're not expecting anything else really in the way of accumulation. But there's still a little bit of slippery roadways, still a little bit of a breeze out there, so a little bit of blowing snow issues. So keep that in mind if you're going to be out and about this afternoon. Not much more, again, in the way of accumulation, but still a few flurries around and a little bit of blowing snow. I'm Chief Meteorologist Dean Wysocki, along with our Ag Director, Bridgette Readel. Bridgette, happy St. Patty's Day to you.
Reporting in for duty as the world's tallest leprechaun today. I'm happy to take that moniker. I have zero Irish in me, except for that. But that's where I'm going to go with today. That have gotten some of those road reports as well from folks who are traveling. I've got some guests coming from Oklahoma. Said that starting to snow out around the Sioux Falls, between Sioux Falls, Sioux City this morning. And hopefully that does improve. We'd like to see that North Dakota road report right now shows just snowy conditions. Hate for that to go to yellow and go to ice. We'd prefer not to have that in many areas. And then also, before we get to the weather, just one thing, Dean, as you saw last night as well, a big loss in ag media last night. Orion Samuelson passed away just 2 weeks shy of his 92nd birthday. And I reached out to his broadcasting partner, Max Armstrong. We had a great conversation, and he said that Orion's favorite drink was a brandy old-fashioned sour. So I'm going to recommend on a wonderful St. Patrick's Day that everybody raise a glass to Orion Samuelson. You all know that voice from U.S. Farm Report. We all have our stories about him. I have one as well from my National FFA convention in Kansas City as a freshman, and he was a wonderful man and very, very respected. Yeah, we'll miss him.
Grew up listening to him in Chicago, and when I worked at WGN and ran into him in the hallways occasionally, and like you said, an absolutely fantastic individual. So that's a big loss, definitely in the ag community for sure. No doubt.
It was. And Max said it was okay to have a cheer to Orion today. So that's my theme. Cheers to Orion. I'm the world's tallest leprechaun. We're celebrating it all.
Good deal. Well, we're going to be celebrating some warmer weather as we head through later this week. So that's the good news there. Finally, we're going to get a return to that spring-like weather. But not today. Today we are looking at some snow, light snow continuing through the FM area. That's spreading into Lakes Country. Taking a look at the road reports, we're looking at still some slippery travel up and down 29. Nothing too bad, though. And then, again, that will spread into Lakes Country as we head into the afternoon. But again, not getting anything, any really bad road reports coming in here, just scattered slippery spots. So be careful out in the roadways this afternoon. That snow will continue lightly, and again, we're going to see a little bit of wind, so we're going to be dealing with blowing snow issues, especially in the Northern Valley where they have a little more snowpack, and in northwest Minnesota. Now, conditions will improve as we head towards evening. Temperatures reaching the 20s today, and we'll stay in the 20s overnight tonight with rising temperatures towards morning. And then as we head into your Wednesday, we'll see more clouds than sun, but it will be warmer with temperatures reaching into the 40s. Now, we'll warm up even further Thursday and Friday, right around 50 on Thursday, into the 50s, mid-upper 50s on Friday. Friday looking pretty nice. And then Saturday, a cold front will approach, and there's going to be a big variety of temperatures from north to south on Saturday. We'll probably be in the 20s and 30s in the Northern Valley and 50s in the Southern Valley as that cold front will slowly move southward during the day on Saturday, and will lead to colder temperatures back into the 30s on Sunday. As we transition, we could see a little rain-snow mix Saturday night into Sunday. Doesn't look like anything to really worry about right now. And then temperatures will start off next week into the low 40s. And again, according to the LRC, we've got about 2 more storm systems heading our way between the end of the month and that first week in April. until then, we're going to be kind of on the up and down roller coaster ride. I think after that first week in April, though, we should start to see more consistent spring-like temperatures. So that's a couple weeks away. But again, this up and down temperature pattern, that's pretty typical for March. And we'll still keep an eye on any additional storms that are going to bring us any snowfall. I don't think we're done quite yet. Obviously, it is still March, and we still have April to go through. But we're going to see more and more signs of kind of a more extended spring-like temperatures as we start off or head into April after that first week in April, according to the LRC. So we'll see how that irons out. But again, we could use a little more moisture. Again, today we're not going to see a whole heck of a lot more. We're just going to be dealing with blowing snow. And again, a little bit of slippery travel if you're out on the roadways as we head into this afternoon. So, Bridgette, all in all, not a bad day. It could be a lot worse this time of the year. Just leave a little bit of extra time on any commuting that you've got going on for this afternoon.
Well, I hope many of you remember that childhood proclamation, in like a lion, out like a lamb. That's the month of March. And it appears that that's what it will probably be. So hopefully we start to see improved weather conditions as we move through the month, and certainly towards a growing season before too terribly long. Our weather today brought to us by Progressive Ag, our risk management specialists. And as we approach the end of the month, don't forget that we have the WDAY Radio Farm Show next Thursday. That is March 26th, starting at 8:30 in the morning till 5 p.m. on air all day, all ag. And many segments have been requested. One will have a farmer panel. Let them have questions asked of them and share their thoughts of them. Then additionally, we want to see from our folks that are going to talk about financial planning. And I don't just mean bankers talking about lines of credit, operating loans, etc. This is about what we can be doing for your farm going forward to make sure that things are structured well for the next generation. We're going to talk more about livestock, equipment, and so many other topics. So again, join us for the WDAY Radio Farm Show, Thursday, March 26th, brought to us in part by Landmark Company, Mosaic Company, Peterson Farm Seed, and Dynamic Cropping Systems. If you have road reports, just like Justin did, we'd love to hear them. You can call us on the JLA Insurance phone line, 701-293-9000. That's brought to us by Nate Thorsrud. He's a farmer himself. He understands what's going on with all these crop insurance updates, and we'd be happy to guide you through them and what's going to be taking place on your acres for 2026. Lighthouse Commodities generously brings us our live stream for you, and you can find us on Acres TV, which is now up and streaming. Addison said it took a moment today, as well as Facebook and YouTube. Maybe Acres was slow because there was snow in South Dakota, Addison. It's probably what was holding us out.
I'll assume that's
the
true,
excuse
yeah.
he's using there. Exactly.
Yeah, that's just the way to think about it. And of course, we'll take your emails, which we do every day in our Superior Grain Equipment inboxes. Dean is weather at Flag Family. Mine is ag at flagfamily.com. And we know that they not only bring us our inbox support, but Superior Grain Storage, Drying, and Handling Solutions at superiourbins.com. So much to visit about today. First of all, those of you who are heavy coffee drinkers, well, you thought that the tariff and inflation prices were bad. I got worse news. Okay, so if you rely on coffee to start the day, coffee wilt disease is running rampant and really reshaping the global coffee supply all around the last probably 30 years. And there's consequences reaching everywhere. What is coffee wilt? Well, it is a fungus. It's a fusarium. There's many different strains of fusarium. We even have it in wheat, known as fusarium head blight. That fusarium, that classic wilt, blocks and reduces the plant's ability to transport water, and that blockage effectively kills off the plant. Can we go after it and fix it with a fungicide like we do in wheat? Yes and no. I think there's the possibility, but remember, a lot of coffee is grown in countries where this is subsistence farming. They're not operating sprayers. They're doing so much of the work by hand. And so they don't necessarily have a place to go ahead and do this type of activity as to spray it, etc. Instead, researchers are looking to see if they can find ways to build resistance in the plants to that particular disease. Most affected, Arabica, and Robusta coffees. So hold on to your hat for what might happen in the coffee market.
Now, quickly before we go to Kevin, Kevin's got a question for you online too, Bridgette. I did have an emailer
Okay.
ask, and I didn't have an exact answer. I know there might be some price fluctuation, but two things he asked. With the wildfires going on in western South Dakota and Nebraska, and with livestock being lost, will that affect beef prices heading into the spring and summer? Question two, with the Strait of, and we touched on this, I believe, the other day, with the Strait of Hormuz being basically closed and, fertilizer and everything else coming through there, will that affect crop prices at all as we head into the upcoming spring and summer?
So two things when it comes to the wildfires, because we don't know what's been lost for head, et cetera. Yes, that can impact us. We don't know what that short or long-term situation is going to be yet. We just don't know the numbers. We also have the JBS plant in Colorado is on strike. They probably didn't have enough head to run the kill floor in the first place, and they're having to move those animals to other places for processing. So we're going to see what that does. It'll increase pricing more because of transportation costs than anything else. I actually have a really great set of livestock folks coming in to the Radio Farm Show next week, Thursday, who are going to be able to give a much better answer. And hopefully by then we have those wildfires, particularly in Nebraska, contained, so we have a little better handle on what the losses might be out there. Then additionally, when you ask about what's happening in the Strait of Hormuz, et cetera, yes, that's going to impact us short term because of diesel. Diesel prices are going to go up. And if you didn't have a contract to bring in tanker loads of diesel, transports, et cetera, that's going to affect your input cost. Fertilizer, a third of the global nitrogen and I think a fifth of the global phosphate comes through that strait. We know that here we have a better chance of being okay because we probably stockpiled fertilizer in the winter months, so we're probably okay. We're going to have to see what that looks like as we get a little bit further into spring. If we were to load a ship today, it would probably be 6 weeks before it could hit a field anywhere in the U.S., and we'll be right at planting. Costs on fertilizer have doubled to tripled in a lot of cases already. And a lot of that's due to transportation insurance on the transport ships.
Right.
So what does Kevin have?
All right, Kevin, you got a question for Bridgette. Go ahead.
No, it's not a question. It's a comment. What I experienced at Aldi's Food here in Fergus, which was kind of disturbing, but how so I had a run to do to Fleet Farm, which is a half a block away from Aldi's. I went over there. They open at 9. I go in there, and I'm usually one of the first ones, and I kind of pick a Tuesday because of the restock and everything going on. You went in there, there was nothing, and everybody's going, what? Well, there were some things, but I go, what? I go, are you guys closing? I said that to myself, and then some other, oh, God, they must be closing, and everybody's panicking. And I go, nah, storms.
Yeah,
and
we've had a lot of winter storms.
Correct. And I go, okay, but the panic was, and this is what bothers me, people will start panicking and going, oh, my God. I worry just how dependent on daily our food movement and the trucking and the whole thing across the country, and how crazy people might get if they, since remember the toilet paper thing that happened during the COVID?
It's gonna be the same thing, Kevin. We're not going to stop people from having those anxiety attacks and those moments of concern, because are we in a situation where we are running out of food? No, we're not. But it's like the pandemic. No. You may not get the exact thing that you wanted right there that day. And a lot of that's going to come down to trucking. And as we watch diesel prices continue to climb, that will absolutely impact us, because you will have, especially independent carriers, who are going to say, I can't afford to do this right now.
No, but I was really concerned about the mindset of America. We're going to have runs on if there's more shortages. I mean, my God, I don't want to be in this kind of world like that. I go, you know what? You get what you get. You go away, you wait, and you're not going to be a part of that. That's what bugged me the most. There was a lady that goes, are you kidding me? They don't have what I want? And I go, are you kidding me? I said, lady, I was just like, yeah, okay. They don't have what you want, and you know what? You can get disgusted at the store and go out to Walmart, quarter mile away, and you know what? They probably don't have what you want because they have the same problem. And I just
Folks aren't used to
it's kind of
the not having everything that they thought they'd have is unfortunate.
Yeah. Well, whatever. Anyway, that was the comment for today, and I just go, guys, got to realize we're a day by day society, or a couple days, and you know what? Just relax. Don't get crazy. They'll come around, and if it doesn't, adjust.
Good.
Well, have them stock their pantries, Kevin.
Good idea. Thanks so much, Kevin. Thanks so much. Well, we're coming up on break, and when we come back, we will have Alan, our guest from South Dakota Ag Foundation, Keep Farmers Farming. We'll have more on Alan. And if you have any questions for our guest or for us, 701-293-9000. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
The first Monday of every month, we are joined by Blake Sunday with Landmark Companies for the Drainage Difference. And we're looking forward to doing that again here in just a couple of weeks. So mark your calendars for the Drainage Difference. Make sure that you are visiting landmarkteams.com to look at their early order discounts, especially when it comes to their precision drainage, because they have proven results. And you will hear Landmark Companies when we do our WDAY Radio Farm Show next Thursday, March 26th, because Blake will be one of our guests during one of the hours we're on air. Again, they are also a sponsor because that farm show is brought to you by Landmark Company, Mosaic Company, Peterson Farm Seed, and Dynamic Cropping Systems. But our guest is brought to us courtesy of the state of South Dakota. We are joined by Alan Jojer, and Alan is here to talk about a program called Keep Farmers Farming. And it has its own origins, I should say, but now we've gone to this South Dakota Ag Foundation. There's a lot of places to start. So let's start at the beginning, Alan. How in the world did this organization come to be?
First of all, good afternoon, everybody. It's great to be here. 13 years ago, it'll be 13 years ago in May, there was an ag advisory group for a bank that come forward and said, every time we have a death in our community, we've got a big family fight, undoing, or whatever have you. And somebody needs to step into this space and help with that. And that was the original idea. Now, this group brought it to the bank. The bank looked at it and said, we've got a trust department. We've got other departments that handle this type of work. Why would we add another department? And that was the beginning of the story. And they went back to the group and said, we don't think we should do this. And the group said, well, if your bank's so good at all those things, then why every time we have a death in our community, we've got a big family fight? And it was at that point the bank had the courage to say, let's try this and see where it goes. And here we are 13 years later.
So as you start to think about this, there could be fights, etc. Is this almost like a little bit of mediation that you can do to help folks understand that the relative who continues to farm, what they might need from as far as support financially and otherwise from the rest of the family?
Yeah, no question about it. It's a mediation, but even more than that, people really don't understand what they're going through, and it's to create a level of understanding that they are part of agriculture. And agriculture is going through this huge generational wealth transfer, not just when we pass, but also while we're living, working with our children. And with all the differences and the variability between operations and the complexities, in general, and this sounds like a general statement, but it's so true, people just don't know where to start. And so they worry about it and they worry about it. But once we get started, we'll find that pathway.
Okay, we're going to need to know how people start. What's the first step? What's the way that they start, as you said, that pathway? And we're going to do that. We had just a short moment here as we get up to our bottom of the hour news. So, Alan, don't go anywhere. We're going to continue with you. When we come back, we want to ask about what's that first step? Who reaches out to you? And how do we get the ball rolling to keep farmers farming? We'll be right back. We are joined by our guest today, Alan Jojer, and Alan is with the South Dakota Ag Foundation program called Keep Farmers Farming. Um, Before I forget, Alan, you really started this as part of, as you mentioned, a peer group with a farm, or excuse me, with a bank, and this was sort of your brainchild, right? You're the guy behind all of this to get it started.
Yeah, we were in on the ground floor up front. That's correct.
Okay, so now that the program exists, and as you mentioned, the goal is to help families work through whether it is estate planning for the future or current situations after a death, etc. So, how does this get started? If a family is saying, I think we're going to need this help, I think we're going to need someone to act as a bit of a mediator to keep everyone from losing their mind and understanding that fair does not always mean equal, where do we start?
Yeah, well, so when people call, that's the most common question after we have an introduction on the phone. And they say, where do we start? I say, coffee. Let's just sit down and talk. Because at that point, we really don't know what they need or what's going on. So we're going to sit down and we're just going to talk. And through that, there's some things we're looking for. History is critically important. If you think about history and looking back, our history is a known. And so we know what we've came through. The only transitional experience that any farmer or rancher has is the one that they went through. Now, whether that they felt good about that or not, they're going to try to repeat some of that. So it's very important to get that transparent because it is a known, because the future is an unknown. And so we're going to spend time talking about that. I'm looking for that, okay? Also, the next step we're looking for, and this could be over a couple, 3 meetings, but what is the vision? Because without vision, we shall perish. And there may have been a vision that got the operation to the place that it is today. But what is the vision of the future? And what is the vision of our children that are going to be running the operation? And what is the vision of all of our children? And how that plays into the bigger picture. That's critically important. Without that, we could deploy the wrong strategy. People want to get pain relief, so go ahead.
When you said that about deploy the wrong strategy, you're exactly right, because if you completely misunderstand or decide to ignore what the wishes were of, say, grandma and grandpa trying to leave their legacy behind, and you're just in it to do something that doesn't follow their wishes, that's not honoring them. And that's probably what you're talking about. But you also have to mix in some business acumen as well, because is what grandma and grandpa wanted viable? Would that be fair?
Yeah, that's fair. For sure it's fair. And at the same time, things are changing. Things are different than it was when grandpa and grandma was here. So how do we honor the legacy of the past that got us here and yet adjust to the changing world around us today? It's really important.
So the work that you do, where do some of the resources come from? Because you probably need financial advice. There might be times where you need some mental health support for those who are involved. Where do you draw from for all of that information?
Yeah, great point. It is a team effort. Us ourselves, we are not attorneys, we are not CPAs, but ultimately we're going to pull those professions in when we need them and when they're involved. We want to get connected with their loan officers to help them keep them up to speed. If there's, we're not mental health experts by any means, but if we see that there's things there that we don't handle, there are resources to pull them as well. So we've really pulled all those types of resources together. We're just the boots on the ground. It's a consulting position that really gets very intimate and personal with these families as we work through this difficult process.
So you're all volunteers, and what kind of backgrounds do you have?
Yeah, actually, we're not volunteers. We are employees of the foundation, and so therefore there is a consulting fee involved. It won't sustain the program itself, so we do have outside funding to help us, stay sustainable. But no, we are employees of the foundation. There are 2 of us consultants today in South Dakota.
Maybe I hate to ask this question, but how busy are you, Alan?
Currently, between active clients and we call them engaged ones that we're just meeting for those first times, we're just over 160 families impacting today, roughly close to 65 operations. We have touched over 400 operations over the 13 years, so we have a lot of experience we're drawing off of.
Absolutely. And you mentioned every operation is unique. And so you're not afraid to work with folks, whether it would be with a grain business, livestock, possibly even agribusinesses as well?
Yeah, for sure. Anything that impacts agriculture, size doesn't matter. The diversification of the operation doesn't matter. Actually, we see diversification as a strength because as we're bringing in more family members, we need to get to the bottom line. What is the capacity of the business? What can it handle today? And what are we going to do to make room or grow the capacity of the business for the future? If that's what the vision wants, it still comes back to that vision.
You know, we're talking about South Dakota and the South Dakota Ag Foundation. Do you help families outside of the state of South Dakota, or is this focused so that the initial farm in question is in South Dakota, even if there are family members from other states?
Yeah, we're actually, because today, since January 1st, 2025, we've really reeled it back into South Dakota as we're trying to get our scaling and expansion of the organization larger. I have a vision long term. This will be multi-state. We're not there today. People can certainly call, and we'll give direction on the phone. But actually, the face-to-face is difficult for us at the size that we are. What's interesting is we have the knowledge and the process to handle the complexity of all this. That took the 13 years to figure that out. Now we got to get it scaled because there's so much work to do.
Oh, I bet it did. So this may be, I'm not sure if you have this stat off the top of your head. When we talk about wealth transfer, do you have the statistics of how big that is right now? I mean, I've heard some things about 30% of farmland changing over in the next 15 years, and it might even be higher than that.
Yeah, it's huge. I mean, there's statistics of the trillions of dollars over the next, by 2050. I guess I'm going to say it like this because this feels like we can get our arms around it, is if you have a net worth of $13.4 million, that means you have a greater net worth than 99% of the people in the U.S. And so what that means is the wealth of America is in rural America. It's right here. It's right here, right at home. And so the challenge is ours. The challenge is ours to meet. And we need to step up to that challenge because we can accomplish this. Very important.
Can you say that stat again? Did you say 99%? If you have over 3 million, or was it $4 million, that you have more than 99% of the rest of the country?
Yeah, $13.4 million in net worth. You have a greater net worth. Greater net worth than 99% of the people in the U.S. And when you look at the value of farmland, and that's where that value is coming from, the equity there, that's why I'm saying the wealth transfer is going to happen right here in rural America, right here.
When you look at some of the operations you've dealt with, Alan, over 13 years, are there some interesting case studies that come to mind that you're allowed to share, whether it's because of size or complexity? Because folks often think, I'm not sure if anybody can help me because we're such a unique operation.
Every operation's unique in its own right. And so, but I will say the majority of the operation have more similarities than they are different. A lot of the difference just comes in scale and size. But the people piece is where the heavy lifting is. That's where the greatest variable and complexities are. It's not the mechanics. It's not the size of the operations. Obviously, as you get larger, you run into more of the estate tax issues that you have to make sure we have people informed of and put strategies in place. But once you have the vision, I keep coming back to that word because that's critically important, the strategies become fairly easy after that. They really do.
Addison has been kind enough to have run your website in the background of our conversation today. So people have been able to see that on our live stream brought to us by Lighthouse Commodities. So we can see what the scope and scale is of Keep Farmers Farming. And this is a nonprofit, right, Alan? So you guys aren't afraid to say, we need the support too in order to benefit those farm families that need to work with us.
Absolutely. South Dakota Ag Foundation is a nonprofit organization, that's for sure. And we do need that support. But again, we're here for you. We're here to help rural America through the most difficult thing that they need to get accomplished.
Alan, for folks who don't know where your website is or aren't sure about contacting you, and perhaps because we do have a listening audience coming out of Northeast and North Central South Dakota, as well as live stream across Acres TV, maybe they're curious. Where can they reach out to you and where can they begin that process of finding help?
I think the easiest way for communication, look to the South Dakota Ag Foundation.org. That's our website. You're going to find information there and the contact information of myself as well as Shannon Kubik. She's the other consultant. South Dakota Ag Foundation.org.
Much appreciated. It's wonderful to see that folks are stepping up to help others again in probably what they didn't know was going to be their greatest time of need, but really is. So thanks tremendously for being a part of our discussion today, Alan.
Well, thank you very much.
Alrighty, folks, when we return, well, we should take a look out the window and see what's blowing around for St. Patrick's Day. Let's not forget to check those road reports. I have some follow-up headlines that we want to touch on, and it's a great day to raise a glass in honor of Orion Samuelson, a longtime fire broadcaster who passed away yesterday, just shy of his 92nd birthday. We'll be back.
And welcome back to Weather and Ag in Focus. 1:51 in the afternoon on this St. Patty's Day. Hope you're having a nice day, and be careful if you're going to be celebrating St. Patrick's Day. Road conditions are okay. I mean, they're not that bad. They're mainly wet here in the FM area, but we've had some reports of a little bit of slippery travel outside of the FM area. But again, a lot of this snow is winding down, and we're not really expecting much. But we're still going to be dealing with breezy conditions, so you're still going to get a little bit of that blowing snow going over some of those roadways. So please just use a little extra caution if you're going to be out and about this afternoon or this evening. We're looking at that snow winding down, though. Not much more in the way of additional accumulation. But again, with the wind, we'll be dealing with a little blowing snow issue. Temperatures should rise up into the 20s and stay there as we head into tonight and slowly rise towards morning. And then as we head into the rest of the week, we're going to warm things up into the 40s for Wednesday and Thursday and into the 50s for Friday. That'll be the warmest day of the week. And it looks like as we head into the weekend, a cold front swings through. That'll give us a little rain-snow mix on Saturday night into Sunday morning. That doesn't look to be a big deal, but we drop from the 50s on Saturday to the 30s on Sunday. So that up and down roller coaster ride continues for the next week to 10 days. In fact, if you missed it earlier, the LRC does have a couple of more storm systems heading our way, one next week and then another one that first week in April before we start to see more consistent spring-like temperatures instead of this up and down, up and down, up and down, which isn't out of the ordinary. But boy, I mean, this weather over the last, let's say, week to 10 days has been absolutely crazy across the entire nation, from record-setting hail in the suburbs of Chicago, record-setting snowfall in northern Wisconsin, UP, and Michigan, where they picked up to 40 inches of snow, drifts all the way up to rooftops in northern Wisconsin and the UP and Michigan. So if you're a snowmobiler and you want to get some sledding in later in the season here, boy, yeah, load up and go to the UP and Michigan. They've got plenty of snow. And record heat in the desert Southwest, where they're seeing the earliest 100-degree weather ever on record. So, I mean, just from one extreme to the other, it's been a crazy, crazy month of March throughout much of the lower 48. I hope this isn't a sign of things to come for spring and summer, because if that's the case, it's going to be a pretty active one across parts of the U.S. I think the more active weather, more inclined to be to our east, but boy, we'll have to wait and see. And speaking of which, coming up next month, we will have Gary on our show. We're hammering out a date with Gary to see which works best, but we're going to have our LRC Spring and Summer Outlook coming up here in a few weeks, so you'll want to stay tuned for that. Once we get a date nailed down with Gary, we'll let you know, and that should be interesting topic to talk with Gary about since the spring has been so active. How's this going to carry out into the upcoming later spring and summer?
Well, speaking of folks that are going to be on the show tomorrow, will be the Professional Ag Ladies. And I just want to say that I feel like these topics are going to be a little more, they're not going to be very fluffy. How's that? A lot of times those ladies who work in the input side of our business, whether it's with fertilizer, precision agriculture, and more, we talk about, what's going on in an at field level right there in the soil. Tomorrow's going to be a little bit different. And a lot of it's going to be what affects us maybe more personally, and some instances that have happened in our industry that we want to make sure to talk about and share. So tomorrow ought to be great. Feel free to join us between 1 and 2 o'clock for Weather and Ag in Focus. Meanwhile, many of you have had a sniffle this winter, but not everybody. Maybe you had a little better immune system, and plants can too. Plants have an internal immune system that's built on something called their intracellular receptor proteins. And those proteins function in networks like a sensor does, and then they signal to a helper that acts as essential hubs to trigger a plant defense response. Well, the problem is that sometimes pathogens have evolved to fight against that, and they secrete a protein that binds to and disables the helpers. So when a single helper gets shut down, it can stop the whole system, and that allows the pathogen to win. Sound like what happens right there in our own human bodies. But what we've done with modern breeding has unintentionally lowered that response. So crops have become slightly more susceptible to diseases in some cases. There's research out there by a company called Restruct Bio, and they are changing that. They are looking to identify molecular interaction between a pathogen, suppressor, and the crop helper. And then an engineer can use things like CRISPR to change that pathogen from binding to the helper, but doesn't compromise it. So the immune network gets more capable, allows the crop to defend more effectively, and gives us a chance to see that plants can take on disease on their own without any added benefit from human nature. So sometimes when we have to go spray a fungicide to prevent a fusarium from taking over in one of our cereal crops, maybe we can use some of this genetic editing to make those plants healthier so that right on top of things, they take care of themselves. It's kind of like you and I, just getting a little better immune system. So playing in the dirt wasn't all bad for everybody. Well, some of us maybe did it more than others.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I was okay with that. Also, there's a new seed brand from Bayer. They are bringing out a low carbon intensity crop option for the biofuels market. New Gold Seed will focus on low carbon oilseed crops like camelina and winter canolas, and that will be built into the biofuel crop platform. So these are crops that are going to have a multiplier within them to increase their, I want to call it their lignins, and make them better to process for biofuels because more energy can be taken from that plant. When I talk about biofuels, you think about things like a soy diesel known as B100, and even ethanol can be considered a biofuel. And we have the opportunity now to use even more crop than we were with corn and soybeans for things to produce our own fuels in a variety of ways. And North Dakota has the chance to be on the front of that because canola and camelina are well suited to our environment.
All right. Well, thanks, Bridgette. And that'll do it for Weather and Ag in Focus for this afternoon. Everybody go out and have a safe St. Patty's Day, but don't go anywhere yet. The Jay Thomas Show, that's coming up next.